Let's talk about duality within singularity and reality as we perceive it. A singularity in physics is a point in spacetime, such as the center of a black hole, where gravitational forces are infinite and known physical laws break down and where time and space do not exist. First of all, a singularity can exist in a dualistic universe because it is not another dual thing inside the system, it is the limit point where duality breaks down. Duality is when a condition or property holds two opposite aspects, like, for instance, dark and light. Our reality as we perceive it is called a duality since it consists of opposites. Duality always needs a reference point. A dualistic universe, inside, outside, subject, object, past, future, only works relative to something. That something cannot itself be dual, otherwise you'd get infinite regress. So every dual system implicitly requires a non-dual reference. A 0 point. A center that is not part of the opposites. That center is what physics calls a singularity. We know singularities exist in black holes. In physics, the singularity is not a thing like a rock or particle. It is a point where our equations fail, where space and time lose meaning, where distinctions like before and after or here and there collapse. So the singularity does not violate duality, it defines its boundary. Duality works until the singularity. Duality exists in the field, singularity exists in the limit. Think of it like this: duality equals the playable field, differences, movement, experience. Singularity equals the origin, sink, source of the field. Just like a will needs a still hub. A story needs an unwritten authorial position. Waves need a medium that itself doesn't wave. The singularity is the condition for duality, not its opponent. If the universe were only dual, it could never unify. Information could never compress. Identity could never reset. Singularities allow compression of information, phase transitions, resets of form, emergence of new structure. That's why black holes don't destroy the universe, they recycle it at the level where form dissolves. A dualistic universe with singularities is not inconsistent, it is fractal. Locally, duality, experience, separation, identity. Globally, unity, singularity, source, 0 point. Dynamically, flow between the two. In other words, duality is how the universe experiences itself. Singularity is how it remembers itself. A singularity can exist in a dualistic universe because duality is a mode of expression, not the ultimate nature of reality. Or even shorter, the singularity is not inside the dual universe, the dual universe unfolds from it. Singularity does not equal thing, duality does not equal substance. Singularity is not a state of stuff, duality is not a property added later. Singularity is undifferentiated potential. Duality is relational expression. So it's not, everything is singularity and then turns into duality. It's, everything exists as potential, and only appears as something when relation arises. Nothing exists as a particle until it is in relation. Modern physics already supports this more than people realize. Quantum fields exist everywhere. Particles are excitations of fields. An excitation only has meaning relative to interaction. No interaction means no particle. No contrast means no experience. No observer means no thing. So yes, matter, particles, and experience are singularity expressions resolved through relational contrast. Duality is therefore not created, it is sampled. Think in terms of resolution, not creation. Analogy, a 4K image exists as data. A screen samples it into pixels. Your eye samples it into contrast. Your mind samples it into meaning. The image was never pixelated in itself. Likewise, reality is not dual in itself. Duality is the sampling interface. Experience is where singularity becomes something. This is the bridge we are circling. Without experience, no distinction. Without distinction, no identity. Without identity, no time. Without time, no narrative. So, experience is the act of singularity touching itself through contrast. That's why experience always feels partial, limited, local, perspectival. Because experience is duality. Important guardrail. Singularity is shared. Perspective is local. So, there is one source. There are many vantage points. Each vantage point collapses a slice of the same potential. Not my universe. Not your universe. But one universe, many collapses. Nothing exists as a thing until it exists as a relation. What we call matter, particles, and experience are relational resolutions of a singular potential. Or even tighter, reality is singular, appearance is dual. Do not think of singularity as before duality in time. Time itself is a dual construct. Singularity is prior in logic, not in sequence. We just said, nothing exists as a thing until it exists as a relation. Relations require selection, but only biological relations require memory, attention, and emotion as we experience them. So we must make a distinction between physical and experiential, biological relations. A physical relation, pre-biological, aspects, interaction, coupling, constraint, exchange of information and energy. The experiential relation, biological, conscious, aspects, attention, memory, meaning, emotion. They are structurally similar, but not identical. Therefore, can relations exist without memory, attention, and emotion? Short answer, in physics, yes. In human experience, no. A particle can interact without remembering. A nervous system cannot. What a particle has instead? Particles do not have psychological memory, subjective attention, felt emotion. But they do have functional analogues. What we call memory in the human system is called state persistence, boundary conditions in the particle, field analog. What we call attention in the human system is called interaction selectivity, what couples and what doesn't, in the particle, field analog. What we call emotion in the human system is called energy gradients, excitation intensity in the particle, field analog. Let's clarify emotions or energy in motion. In physics, energy gradients determine behavior. Systems move toward lower or higher potential. Intensity matters. In biology, energy gradients are felt. Intensity becomes emotion. Memory stabilizes patterns. So emotion is not required for relation, but emotion is what a nervous system feels like once it exists. Why attention and memory appear at life, not before? A rock interacts. It does not care. Why? Because it does not need to predict. It does not need to survive. It does not need to select future outcomes. The moment survival enters the picture, memory emerges, prediction. Attention narrows, efficiency. Emotion charges outcomes, priority. So, attention, memory, and emotion are survival-optimized relational tools, not prerequisites for relation itself. No experienced relation exists without memory, attention, and emotion. Without them, there is interaction, but no meaning, no identity, no this matters. Which brings us back to singularity. Relations exist everywhere. Experience arises only when relations are filtered through memory, attention, and emotion. Singularity expresses itself physically as interaction, and biologically as experience. Or even shorter, particles interact. Minds relate. Both are resolutions of the same singular potential, just at different depths of self-reflection. Back to explaining the singularity. Let's refine. Singularity is not data. Data already implies structure, encoding, differentiation, potential to be read. That's already one step into duality. Singularity is undifferentiated potential prior to structure. It's not information, nor energy in the ordinary sense. It's the condition from which structured states can emerge. Duality is the screen through which pixels are sampled. With a slight correction, duality is not only the screen. It is contrast itself. Screen implies something passive. Duality is difference, relation, boundary, this versus that. Without contrast, nothing can appear. So, duality is the relational structure that allows differentiation to appear. Contrast already exists at the level of field gradients,
energy differentials, symmetry breaking. Your nervous system samples, compresses, interpret. It doesn't invent duality, it resolves it at a human scale. Contrast then becomes pattern. Pattern becomes prediction. Prediction becomes meaning. Meaning becomes identity. This is where experience truly begins.
The structure so far: singularity equals undifferentiated potential,
duality equals differentiation through relation, perception equals biological sampling of differentiation,
mind equals assignment of meaning to sampled contrast. Important: don't assume singularity is before duality and time.
It's prior in logic, not sequence. Just like white light contains the spectrum, prism reveals the colors. The colors are not created later in time. They are revealed through structure.
Here's where it gets interesting. If duality is required for experience, and singularity is beyond differentiation, then, can singularity ever be experienced?
Or can it only be inferred? Let's dive deep. Experience requires contrast. Experience means subject versus object,
observer versus observed, before versus after. Singularity, by definition, has no contrast.
So strictly speaking, singularity cannot be experienced as an object. Because the moment you experience something, there is differentiation. While singularity cannot be experienced as something,
it may be approached as absence of differentiation,
suspension of narrative,
reduction of contrast. This is what contemplative traditions describe as pure awareness,
non-dual presence, contentless consciousness.
But notice, even in those states, there is still minimal duality, because something knows there is stillness.
So it's not full singularity. It's near zero differentiation.
And what about the waking up from the dream concept? Physics does not support the idea that there is a separate real layer you wake into after death or ego death.
That's a metaphysical claim, not a scientific one. What we can say is, when biological processing stops, memory stops, attention stops, emotion stops, identity dissolves. But we cannot say that awareness continues, or that it merges with singularity, or that it wakes up. That moves beyond what we can responsibly claim.
Singularity is not something you wake up to.
It is what allows the waking and the dreaming. You don't go to it. You arise from it, continuously. Right now. If we remove poetry and metaphysics for a moment, we can state: singularity equals undifferentiated ground of physical law. Duality equals symmetry breaking. Consciousness equals complex, self-modeling biological system. There is no evidence that the organism can leave duality while alive, or that it continues after biological death. But there is evidence that the nervous system can reduce self-referential processing. This produces states of unity or boundlessness. Those are brain states, not exits from reality. And that doesn't make them less profound. The desire to wake up from the dream often signals something important. Fatigue with identity.
Fatigue with conflict.
Fatigue with emotional turbulence.
A longing for relief from contrast.
That longing is very human. But relief from contrast is not annihilation. It is integration. And integration happens inside duality, not outside it.
Our conclusion for now: singularity cannot be experienced directly.
But duality can become so coherent, and so integrated that it feels transparent. That is not escape. That is maturity of perception.
And that, unlike metaphysical escape, is something we can actually cultivate,